Talofa atu, le pokalama ya te oto le whanau nei tula. Talofa to all our viewers and especially our students. Our subject today is Computer Studies for Year 13, and your learning outcomes today are from Strand 1, Personal Computer System and Management. Now let's start our discussion today by reviewing the basic parts of a computer system. I want you to look closely at the computer parts on your screen, and I want you to see if you can name them. I'll give you about 5 seconds. Great job. Now, together let's name the parts. First, we have the monitor. Now, you all know, students, that the monitor is also considered the screen of our computer. It is also an output device that displays all the data and all the information that is inside your computer. The mouse. The mouse is used to control the cursor, and you also use the mouse to click on different documents, different applications, and different files. Your mouse is also responsible for moving your cursor around your screen. The keyboard. The keyboard is an input device, and this is what you use, students, to enter your data or enter your information into your computer. The system unit. This is this big black box that sits right next to your computer. And our system unit is basically what we will focus on today. Have you ever wondered, students, what's inside the system unit? I always wondered as a teacher, but I'm sure you're wondering too as a student. Well, that's exactly what we will learn today. Now, by the end of today's discussion, you will master the following items, and these are also your learning outcomes. So, students, by the end of our discussion, you will be able to, number 1, name the hardware components inside the system unit. Number 2, identify the components that are also inside the system unit. And number 3, you will be able to describe the different functions of the components inside the system unit. Okay, first of all, let's look at the system unit. We all know that the system unit is a case or a box that holds most of the hardware components that's inside our computer. Now I want you to look at the picture on your screen. It is made of steel or sometimes plastic. Some of them are black and gray, and most of them stand upright, just like what you see on your screen, and others lay flat under the monitor. Some people also call it a computer case or a tower. Let's watch this short video clip. Now, this video clip is prepared by GCF, which is Global Learning, and as you watch the video clip, it'll help us better understand and look at what's inside the system unit. So please make sure you watch it carefully.
You may already know that there are a lot of important parts inside a desktop computer, but what exactly do they do? In this video, we're going to take a look inside to show you the various components that make a computer work. Every computer has a large circuit board called a motherboard. This contains some of the most important parts of your computer, such as the CPU, also called the Central Processing Unit, or processor. The CPU is sometimes called the brain of the computer because it processes information and carries out commands. Since it tends to get hot, it's covered by a piece of metal called a heat sink, which draws heat away from the processor. The motherboard also contains your computer's RAM, or Random Access Memory. This is the short-term memory that your computer uses whenever it's performing calculations. However, you can't store your files there because the RAM is cleared when you turn off the computer. For long-term storage, your computer uses a hard drive, which keeps all of its data even when the computer is turned off. Most hard drives use a magnetic platter to store data, but many newer computers have solid-state drives, which are faster and more durable, but also more expensive. If you want to upgrade your computer, you can add expansion cards to the motherboard's expansion slots. You can add a video card to get better graphics performance, or you could add a wireless card to connect to your wireless home network. Of course, your computer's components need electricity to run. The power supply unit is designed to take the power from the wall outlet and send it to all the different components that need power. A desktop computer is a pretty complex machine, but now that you've seen what goes on inside, it should be a little less mysterious.
Now, according to the video clip that we watched, there are so many parts, so many hardware parts that are inside the system unit. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to review the essential parts or the essential components. And so in order for us to do that, we're going to go over and look at the parts, look at them one by one. Now let's review what we learned from the video by reviewing the essential components of the system unit one by one. Now I want you to look at your screen. As you look at your screen, you'll notice a few pictures there. In the middle is the system unit. This is the box that we talked about earlier in our lesson. Now look at the different essential components carefully, and let's go over them one by one. First, we have the motherboard. Now we have the power supply, the hard disk drive, CPU or the central processing unit, the CD, DVD drive, sometimes it's called the optical drive, video card or VGA, the main memory, which consists of ROM and RAM. Now, let's start with the motherboard. Now, I want you to take a close look at what the motherboard looks like. It's actually flat and it has a lot of components attached to it. Now, here is a picture of a motherboard. The motherboard is basically the main circuit board that's located inside the system unit. And the motherboard has different functions. This is basically the role, what the motherboard does inside the computer to help the computer run. First of all, it allows all parts of your computer to receive power or electricity. And then when they receive electricity or power, it helps it communicate with one another. Another function of the motherboard is it basically holds the processor, the memory, and other components of a computer that controls the operation of a computer. And that's why a lot of people usually say that the motherboard is the heart of a computer. It's because it holds everything together. Our next component is our power supply. And I want you to look at our power supply on the screen, study its features, and that way you can remember what it looks like. Now the power supply, it supplies power to a computer, and it also has a fan. Now this fan, what it does, it helps cool the computer down. And these are some of the functions of your power supply. Now when power comes into your computer, it comes in as alternating current, or what we call AC. So what the power supply does is it converts the AC or alternating current from the power source to DC, which is direct current, for a computer to use. So that's basically one function of the power supply. The next function is it distributes and regulates power voltage, the current and frequency required by the computer to operate. So as you can see, the power supply has a very important role in the operation of a computer. Our next component is the processor. Some people call it a microprocessor too, and it's also called the CPU. Now the CPU is also known as the central processing unit. And the CPU, what it does is it controls all the parts of the computer. So if it wasn't for the CPU, we wouldn't have processing taking place in the computer. The CPU controls all parts of the computer. And what it does is it processes all the information and data that comes into a computer. Now, the function of the CPU is very interesting because the CPU consists of three components. And these are the three components. One is called the ALU, and ALU stands for Arithmetic and Logic Unit. We also have the control unit, and then we have the memory. Now let's look at what these three components do. These three components have different functions. Now the first one is the ALU. ALU stands for the Arithmetic and Logic Unit. It is basically a digital electronic circuit that performs arithmetic or math and logical operations. Now every time I think of the ALU, I basically think of math. And so the ALU does the operations such as subtraction, addition, division, and multiplication. So when you enter these formulas into your computer, the ALU is responsible in processing them. Next is our control unit. The control unit directs, controls, and coordinates memory, input, and output devices. It also controls the flow of information. Now, every time I think of the control unit, I always think of the police and what they do. What they do is they usually direct traffic on our roads to make sure that no one gets into an accident. And I usually think of that because that's basically what the control unit does. It directs the flow of data and information inside your computer. And that way everything runs smoothly and that we can be able to get the exact output that we need. And then the last part is the memory unit. The memory unit holds the received data from input devices permanently or temporarily. So it's basically an area that holds data while your CPU is processing your data at the same time. Our next component is the main memory. Now the main memory has two components, basically RAM and ROM. Now I want you to look at the two pictures on your screen and study the features. You'll notice that RAM and ROM, the pictures, they look very different. When you look at ROM, it has like tiny metal legs, and that's how you'll remember what ROM looks like. That's how I remember ROM. Now, if you look at the picture, look at ROM and RAM, they have distinct features that make them different. ROM, if you noticed, have tiny metal legs on ROM, and that basically helps you identify what ROM looks like. Now let's start with RAM. RAM stands for Random Access Memory. And what RAM does, it's actually temporary. Another word for temporary is volatile. Volatile basically means that the data that is held in RAM disappears when your computer turns off. And the function of RAM is it temporarily stores your data and instructions that your CPU is working on. And so when your computer goes off and there is data in RAM, then your data disappears. And that's why it's called volatile. Volatile means temporary. Our next main memory is ROM. ROM stands for read-only memory. Now, ROM is a permanent storage, and another word for permanent is non-volatile. It's a non-volatile memory, meaning that information is always in the memory even when the power is off. And the function of ROM is it starts the computer and performs system diagnostics. And it also stores the data and information for long-term use. Okay, our next component is the hard disk drive. Okay, I want you to look at the picture on your screen and study the features of a hard disk drive. You'll notice that there's a round cylinder. It also has a pen-like looking device that is called a head. Now, the hard disk drive, or HDD, is non-volatile. Now, I'm sure you remember what non-volatile means. Yep, it means permanent. That means all the information in your hard disk drive is permanent. Okay, now it can spin at the rate of 7,200 or more RPMs. Now, RPM stands for revolutions per minute. What does that mean? It basically means that in 1 minute, the hard drive spins around more than 7,200 times. Wow, that's amazing. Now, your hard disk drive also has a device, and it's called the head. And what it does is it reads and writes information to and from the hard disk drive. The function of your hard disk drive is it stores data for a long time, and that is because it's permanent storage. Now, some examples of applications that you store in your hard disk drive is operating systems. You have your application software, some of your personal files, and there's more that you can store in your hard disk drive. Now, our next component is the video card. Okay, take a close look at what a video card looks like. Your video card is also known as VGA. Now, VGA stands for Video Graphics Array or Graphics Card. Your monitor must plug into your graphics card in order for the video to be displayed on the screen. That means if you want to watch a movie or if you want to view photos or video clips, you need to have a graphics card in your computer, and your graphics card must be plugged to your monitor in order for you to view your video or view photos, pictures of your family. That's why a video card is very important. Now, sometimes when you buy your motherboards or you purchase a computer, a motherboard already has a built-in video card. But sometimes when you buy a computer, some computers don't have it. And that's why it's important that you buy one. And what is the function of our video card? It actually sends the display data from your computer to your monitor. It generates output images for display on your terminal or on your monitor. The CD and DVD drive is used to play CDs and DVDs. Now, before we used the USB or thumb drive, most of us used CDs and DVDs to record music or record movies. And so our CD and DVD drive is basically the drive that is on your system unit that can play your CDs and your DVDs. And the function of your CD and DVD drive is basically to read and write data on all components of common CDs and DVD formats. Wonderful. Now let's review and see if you remembered what we discussed. Now, students, I want you to take out a pen and paper and let's review. I want to see whether you remembered what these different components look like and their names. So let's look at activity number 1 on your screen and let's read the instructions very carefully. Look at the photos below and name each hardware component found inside the system unit. So students, I will say the letter assigned to the component and I will move the cursor and point to the component. And I want you to look at the photo and I want you to write down the name of the component on your paper. Are you ready? Great. Okay. Component A. Write down what component A is. What is the name of our component A? Let's go to component B. What is the name of component B? Component C. Let's go to component D. Component E. Component F. Component G. And our last component, component H. Excellent job, students. You guys were great. Now let's go over the components and I want you to check your paper as we show the different component parts. Okay, A is CD, DVD drive. B is CPU or central processing unit. C is video card or VGA. D is your motherboard. E is ROM or read-only memory. F is the power supply. G is RAM or random access memory. And H is your hard disk drive. Wonderful. I'm sure you all got that right. Now, to help you continue with your learning at home, I have homework for you. So I want you to look at your screen and let's read the instructions on your screen. So for homework tonight and this week, I want you to describe the functions of each of the components below. So look at your paper and now describe the functions of the different components that you have on your paper. When you're done, I want you to give your homework to your teacher, and that way your teacher will go over your homework with you. Here are the vocabulary words for you to study this week. Now you can use your dictionary or you can also go on Google to find the definition or review the definition of these words. Now let's go over the list of words. System unit, motherboard, power supply, processor, central processing unit or CPU, ROM, read-only memory, RAM, random access memory, hard disk drive or HDD, video card, optical CD, DVD drive, volatile, non-volatile, regulates, and transformer. Now, before we end this lesson, students, let's review our learning outcomes again. We hope that you are now able to, number 1, name the hardware components inside the system unit. Number 2, identify the different components inside the system unit. And number 3, describe the functions of the components inside the system unit. We hope you enjoyed our lesson today. You can also visit the website on the monitor for more resources. Thank you so much for being with us. Till then, Tofasa.